do not find this excess political reportage essentially negative. I feel that the excess political reportage, in a sense, catalyzes people that they are part of a political process. It embeds them within a larger political narrative.
What changes have you observed in journalistic practices over the years? Journalism, without question, has significantly changed in the past 20 years. So, based on your experience, what changes have you seen?
See, the first change is the idea of deadline. Earlier, when we were only print, we had a clear deadline of late evening. Uh, but today, it's a 24-hour news cycle. Therefore, there is a constant evolving deadline, which is a new challenge which has come in. Um, the fixed deadline gave journalists a time to reflect. Say, if I collected news by 3:30 in the evening, I have time till 7 or 7:30 to file my story, which means I had the time to process the information. I was not forced to share the information as I was getting it. Today, the issue is the gap between information received and the information processed has been narrowed so much, where we have to pass on the information even before subjecting it to various acts of, say, verification, cross checking, authentication, and also to make sense of certain developments. This urgency, this continuous news cycle, where the deadline is no longer a fixed deadline, is the one which makes journalism completely different from what it was. I became a journalist in mid 80s, very clear deadlines, late evening for city editions and late night for uh, late city editions. You had time. But now just imagine it, 24/7 news cycle. You have to keep feeding into this material. Therefore, that is the difficult one what we are facing.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think the point about journalists getting enough time to reflect or get in that time period, I think that is super important for anybody. And yes, now it has become extremely competitive. Very there's no time to reflect. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next question we'd like to ask is about internet journalism. So, what, how is internet journalism in India, and how do you think it is different from internet journalism in other parts of the world?
See, actually, net is a great enabler, no doubt about it. Um, One the aspect of the net which I am not too comfortable is net is not having a clear revenue model. Therefore, if you're going to have your own, say, Arushi and Karunya are going to run a portal, that Arunya Arushi portal needs certain amount of resources for the news gathering. Um, For that, you need a proper revenue stream. The internet journalism is it's giving us a reach, but it's not giving us enough revenue. Therefore, reach over revenue is the one which is hurting this journalistic model. Yes, we are able to reach new readers. If you are producing podcasts, you get new listeners. If you are producing videos, you get new viewers. And all these things are delivered with much less um, transmission cost. Therefore, delivery cost has come down drastically with internet, and with broadband being available across the world, and with a lot of people carrying their internet connectivity in their hand in the form of mobile phones, it's definitely an extremely enabling medium. But that enabling medium is not having a attendant revenue stream. Therefore, initially we can do these things out of good faith. But if you want to make it a sustainable economic model, see, if you want to become a full time journalist, and if you're going to earn from your journalism, and if it is going to be internet journalism, you need to earn something from it, isn't it? That is the one which is completely fuzzy with the internet journalism. Internet journalism has a big reach. Internet journalism reaches the younger readers far better than the conventional analog models. These two things are clearly established. And also, the advantage of the internet is you can work on multiple formats. I can start with a podcast, I can move into a video for a quick explainer. From video, I can have a PowerPoint presentation to get into specific details. And from there, I can get back to text. Therefore, there is a flexibility of multiple mediums through which I can reach. Therefore, internet provides all these facilities. In that sense, internet is a big enabler. The biggest problem with the internet is it doesn't give us the revenue as of now.
Okay. Yeah.
What is happening today is people are putting their energy, time, and their initiative into it. And for that energy, initiative, and expertise, what they are putting in, they are getting readers or they are getting their audience. But that audience is not converting into something called the sustainable economic model.
Yeah. So since a lot of journalism has become internet journalism, we see a lot of digital agencies emerging online, right? Competition has significantly increased in the past years, which is why it becomes imperative for a news agency to produce very good quality content so that people subscribe and hence the news agency earns revenue. So since quality has become such an important factor, what advice would you give to young people out there who are interested in pursuing a career in journalism? Or in other words, how, in your opinion, what makes a perfect journalistic piece?
See, any form of public engagement as one underlying ethical obligation. That is, are we going to contribute for public good or not? If we are contributing for public good, we have a place in these spaces. When journalism, it's essentially, is it contributing for public good? Is it not creating harm? Therefore, at one level, when we are talking about public good, we are also conscious that our journalism shouldn't cause harm. Therefore, are we clear about what you are putting out in the public domain is not going to cause harm? The moment we are clear about these two things, the format varies. As long as we are very, very sure of the truth. See, the ultimately journalism depends on only one thing, that is called trust. And trust flows from a simple element called truth.
Yeah.
If we are truthful and if we are trustworthy, we become a credible news agency.
Absolutely, right. So, as you're talking about trust, right, and truth, suddenly I remember one of your articles, and you'd mentioned that the Hindu does not provide fodder for propaganda, to quote. So, could you tell us a little bit about the message that you intended on conveying, and also maybe just elaborate on those words?
See, the distinction between what is news and what is propaganda is simple. Propaganda is an idea of amplifying people who have power. News is the one where you amplify the information what citizens need to take informed choices on a daily basis.
Yeah.
For instance, let's get into specific details, like say demonetization. When the demonetization happened, if I'm going to say that demonetization is going to eradicate black money, I become a propagandist. If I say that demonetization has caused this much of problems in the rural households, then it becomes journalism. The idea is, are you going to amplify what people are saying, in power are saying, or are you going to look at these issues dispassionately and see what does it really mean. That takes certain amount of work. For instance, even when the demonetization happened, it took some time for us to explain that this is not a great idea.
Hmm. Yeah.
For that, we needed uh, evidences, we needed economic indicators, we needed the slowdown of the informal economic sector. All those things, it actually took time. When the demonetization happened for the first 2 days, it was full of propaganda which said that it's going to eradicate black money, that it's going to bring in an economic progress. But it took 2 days for us to actually see that it's not the case. And to prove that, we actually wait for evidence to emerge. Because journalism is based on evidence, and journalism is not based
Absolutely.
on claims.
Yeah.
Anything which is based on claims is propaganda. Anything which is based on evidence is journalism.
Right. Yeah, I think you make a very important point there. Lately, we've seen a lot of misinformation spreading because of this distinction between evidence and claims. So,
Yeah.
if journalists do provide their opinion on something, then they don't make it clear that it's their opinion, right?
Yeah.
Which is why the public gets misinformed, and this causes a lot of problems. And so, that distinction between claims and evidences is pivotal. And every journalist should definitely verify facts and support their argument with facts and stats and yeah, just evidence really. Now,
See, act of verification is the central fulcrum on which journalism is residing. Unlike other forms of writing, say if you're writing a fiction or you're writing an essay or you're writing a play, there is complete creative freedom. Whereas when you're doing journalism, act of verification is central. If you're not having
absolutely.
your act of verification embedded into your journalism, it's no longer journalism. You can't call anything which has act of verification absent as journalism.
Yeah, right. So what advice would you give to young people who are interested in pursuing a career in journalism in terms of verification? So how right from the beginning do they inculcate this conscious ability to check their facts?
See, this act of verification is a rigorous one. To do this, we have to understand the two trails or the two tracks on which journalism travels. One is called bearing witness, another one is called making sense. Let me make it much more clearer. Say, if it is going to be a tsunami which is hitting the coast of southern Tamil Nadu, a journalist is bearing witness, which means she is seeing the waves rising, which means bearing witness happens by bearing witness itself is an act of verification where you become the first person witness. Therefore, you bear witness, and therefore, that act of verification happens. That's what happens mostly with reporting. Reporting, journalists bear witness and they become the first tier of verification. And second tier of verification is you talk with the people. We corroborate the facts. If somebody is saying that, oh, it hit us at the early in the morning, and the other person is going to say that as the sun was rising, we saw the water entered our village, then it corroborates.
Yeah.
Well, in journalism, what happens is we are putting these jigsaw puzzle pieces together. First, you are a witness, and then you talk to other witnesses, and then the story actually emerges. Then all the pieces are in place. You put them together for the reader to get a full idea or the full image of what happened. The
Right.
way it is actually slightly a painful exercise where we have to collect item by item and put it together. It's like building a house or it's like binding a book. You need all the facts and then you put it together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like the jigsaw analogy because I think that very effectively conveys that journalism is definitely difficult, but also the end of it is rewarding. And so it's important to verify facts. Yes. Also, so to quote one of...
Verifying facts is not an abstract idea. See, verifying facts is you get it endorsed by people who are the stakeholders. Therefore, by talking to various people, you get it endorsed.
Right.
And the first thing in journalism is that your act of verification is never restricted to getting one person to endorse it. You get more than one person to endorse it.
Okay, yeah.
That's what makes it a rigorous act of verification. Rigorous
Right.
act of verification is not getting one person to endorse it, but getting more than one person to substantiate your claims.
Absolutely, yes. Because a lot of people tend to resort to the hasty journalism, generalization fallacy, right? So they see one person and then they say, okay, everybody does it this way, which will not do anybody any good. So it's imperative to definitely ask different sources and to look at different sources as long as they're reliable. Yeah. Now to quote one of your phrases, so you say that nationalism is driven largely by digital multiplications and algorithm-driven manipulations. So what do you think will help curb this? And do you think that the new IT laws to some extent are contributing to this?
See, the new IT laws has been challenged in the court.
Yes.
We have to wait and see how the courts are going to respond. But as citizens, we have to understand the type of power which some of the Silicon Valley corporations are now wielding, especially the aggregating platforms like, say, a Google or a Twitter or a Facebook. They have much more details about us than what we know. For instance, I use a Google browser. I have a Google email, which means Google has far more data about the types of book I ordered in Amazon over the last 1 month. It gives an idea of the writers whom I followed. It gives an idea of the type of music I heard online. It gives an idea of the Netflix films of which I liked. It will also give an idea of the films which I skipped. It will also give an idea of the music which I skipped. It will also give an idea of the sports which I skipped.
Yeah.
It's not only what I like, it also gives an idea of what I don't like.
Absolutely.
Which means this artificial intelligence is gathering so much of information and it is getting highly centralized.
Yeah.
That is where the power of artificial intelligence is a bit worrying, because it is not giving us room for looking at something completely new. It gets tailor-made to suit what we like. There may be some things what we had never heard earlier, which we might actually like if we see it. But if we are not going to see it, if the algorithm is not permitting us to know what is happening in that area, that is the problem. Therefore, the algorithm is becoming a sort of a new blinkers. Therefore, we have to negotiate this information highway without those algorithmic blinkers. Algorithmic blinkers are putting us in a narrow path, and it's our duty to remove that blinker and look at the multiple possibilities of the information highway.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have another question for you. Again, I'm quoting you. A clear distinction between the enabling idea of patriotism and the debilitating imagination of nationalism.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think that a major part of our population is unable to understand nationalism?
See, this is a question which was raised by one of the greatest Indian, Ravindranath Tagore. Actually, if you go through Tagore's book on nationalism, it's now we are talking about issue which is more than century old. The the sway of narrow nationalism always uh, appeals because it gives you a comfortable other as an enemy. Uh, if you are not having an enemy, this nationalism will not work. This nationalism, if this nationalism has to work, you have to invent enemy. There is a very fine book by Umberto Eco. It's called Inventing an Enemy. Okay. Therefore, this nationalism works by inventing enemies. Patriotism doesn't need enemies. Patriotism needs friends.
Right.
Okay. With friends, what you work is sharing your grief. Sharing your grief and jointly working for betterment is a different idea from the competitive idea of war induced nationalism or the hate induced narrow imagination.
Yeah.
That's what I want to mean by enabling patriotism versus disabling nationalism.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Um, yeah, there's another question we have. So, what was your experience um, when you found and wrote about the life of Mr. Karunanidhi?
See, I got into that entire exercise because there are two ways in which a modern country is being built. One is called holding together, another one is called coming together. Holding together is where the power at the government it becomes of central importance, and the power from the government holds the people together. There, the independence or the aspirations of the people are secondary. Second idea of nation building is coming together, where people voluntarily come together to form a nation state. When you are coming together, you also come in with certain amount of aspirations, ideas, expectations, dreams. Therefore, what inspired me was this idea of coming together politics, which Mr. Karunanidhi exemplified, as opposed to voting together politics, which flows from a highly centralized polity. That's the reason I got into that biography exercise in the first place.
Okay, got it. So now just to end, we have one last question. So what message would you like to give to anyone who is pursuing journalism? Maybe even if they're in college studying journalism or experienced journalists, a journalist, what advice or what message would you give them?
I am not in the business of giving messages. I can only share my experiences. As a person who had been in journalism for nearly 40 years, I can say that journalism helps us to understand our society better. And if you want to understand your own society better, there is no other profession than journalism to do that. Therefore,
Definitely.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who won his Nobel Prize for Literature, called journalism the best job in the world. He called it best job in the world because it gives you the idea of witnessing major events from the ringside view. I don't think any other profession gives you that ringside view to be a witness to major developments. If you are a sports correspondent, you're going to watch the best match. If you are a political correspondent, you're going to watch the best parliamentary debate. If you are an economic correspondent, you're going to watch a major policy decision making. Therefore, you are going to become the witness of major changes. Therefore, if you want to understand the world, journalism gives you the biggest opportunity to see from close quarters of how these things happen.
On that note, here's wishing more power to all journalists out there. We wish you all the best. Thank you so much for doing this interview with us.